Welcome to Maybe You're Interested, but probably not. A weekly podcast where we discuss topics in culture, questions from scripture, or things that we just find humorous or interesting. This podcast is brought to you by Northview Church in Kodak, Tennessee, and you can reach out to us anytime by visiting our website at www.mynorthview.church. Thanks for joining us. And now, on to this week's episode.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this first episode of Maybe You're Interested, but Probably Not. I am Greg Rains, the lead pastor at Northview Church, and I'm joined here tonight by Mr. Craig Gibson. He's one of our elders. Say hello, Craig.
Hello, everybody.
Tell us one fact about yourself, Craig.
One fact about me is that I feel a lot older than I really am.
You look a lot older.
Thank you.
Or maybe younger. I don't know how old you are. We're also joined by Greg Jones, who's also one of the elders of Northview Church. What's one fact you got about yourself, Greg?
I'm a farmer.
Everybody knows that.
I used to work in IT.
You delivered a cow the other day.
I delivered a cow the other day. But
There we go.
that falls under farmer.
Yeah, that does fall under farmer. Yeah. We're also joined by Mr. Micah Booker. Micah is a member of Northview Church. Say hello, Micah.
Hello, everyone.
Tell us a fact about yourself, Micah.
Well, one fact that a lot of people wouldn't know about me is that I love classical music.
Really?
Yeah.
Wouldn't have guessed.
Yeah.
Peg G. Moore's a country guy. Oh, no, that's you. Never mind.
Because I'm a farmer.
Because you're a farmer, yeah. And also because I know you and you're, a country guy. So anyways, this is the first episode of Maybe You're Interested, but Probably Not. And this podcast is all about, we're going to cover hot topics going on in the culture today. We're going to talk about, throughout the weeks, we're going to talk about some biblical truths and questions that people may have. And in some weeks, we may just have fun and talk about something that we find interesting or humorous, but again, you probably won't find that interesting. But we're still going to have fun with this podcast. It's going to be a rotating group of guests on here with us each week. I'm probably going to be on here almost every week, but other than that, it's going to be other people from Northview Church and maybe some outside guests that join us. So if you're looking for a podcast to have some fun with and maybe find out some truths that are going on in culture and in Scripture and maybe just some interesting facts, this might be the podcast for you. It's going to come out one time a week. And today we're going to dive right into what we're trying to accomplish. Like I said, sometimes this is going to be a lighthearted take on some topics, but today, with what's going on in our culture, we're going to start out with a pretty heavy topic, and that is the topic of social and racial justice. And I know over the last week or so, after the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis, there's been a lot of unrest in our country. Not just because of that incident, but because of some incidents that's happened in the past. And we're going to discuss today, how should the church respond to social and racial injustice? And that's a hard topic, I think, for churches, especially in this area, because we are not, just to be perfectly honest, we're not super racially diverse here in the community that we meet in. But we do have Micah, and we felt like, as we were talking about this tonight, we didn't want this to be a disingenuous conversation with, just to be frank, a bunch of old white guys talking about this topic. And Micah is a near and dear friend of mine and a member of our church, and I asked him to come on and just speak about some of his experiences growing up and maybe recent experiences that he's had with this. So Micah, I'm going to turn it over to you. Why don't you share with us just that. What are some experiences that you've had growing up?
Well, growing up, basically, we were harassed a lot, constantly treated differently, and come to find out that our neighbors were, trying to sign petitions to get us out of their neighborhood because we were living on the wrong side of the town. There's one side of the town that was with all white people, and then there's on the other side of the town with the bridge is with, different races. So my mom.
And tell everybody what city you grew up in.
I grew up in Fairborn, Ohio.
Fairborn, Ohio.
Yes,
okay.
right across from Wright Pat Air Force Base.
All right.
So in that, growing up there, it was different, having to deal with that. But my mom, she showed us how to, to deal with that stuff. But also another thing in schools, it was hard too because the teachers weren't always fair to us. Kind of found out also that my brother got F because he was black and he was very popular. He was a good player. He played football. He was a quarterback and played basketball. So hearing that, as we were young, we didn't see it, but my parents did. So
Right.
that was hard to hear about that.
Yeah. Now, you and I sat down Sunday evening and we talked some about this, and there was a specific experience that you mentioned the other night. Would you like to share that with us?
Yes, I was about 10. And me and my brother and a couple of our friends, we were going to the park to play basketball. And we were, being kids, throwing rocks. And we hit a car. We weren't trying to vandalize or anything. We was just throwing rocks. And this guy pulls up and asks us what's going on, what we're doing. And we were just telling him we're going to the park, but he didn't like our response. So he threatened us. Of course, he said, I got a rifle in my car and I got a rope in there to hang you if you don't tell me the truth. But honestly, we was just going to the park. But as a kid hearing that, that's scary. Because when somebody's saying that to you, you don't know what to do. It's like your parents are not there to protect you. So, you're by yourself and you with your friends. They're all young. This guy's an older guy. He's stronger, I'm pretty sure. But hearing that, that's scary. For somebody to say that to somebody that young and don't care, that's all real scary.
Yeah.
Real scary.
So when you see all of this going on, you have some personal experience with these types of things, and maybe not to the extent that some other people have had. Sounds like you've been kind of lucky in that process,
yes.
to where you've not been bombarded like some other people have with this. But still, you have had the feelings and you've had the interactions with people that have made you maybe feel. I guess I'm putting words in your mouth, but maybe sometimes feel like less than, or people, or maybe people look at you like you're less than. Would you speak to that a little bit? How it makes you feel?
Yeah, because we want to be accepted in the communities that we live in. It's you get upset, but if I let it bother me so much, then a lot of things will go wrong. But it's hard for people not to accept you for you being you. But the thing with it is, if they don't know you, you never know. You could have a lot of things in common. So, just to go off, a judgment, you don't liking somebody because of their color, that's not fair or right. So it's hard to deal with, but growing up, I dealt with it so much. I've gotten better to deal with it as I got older. Instead of getting more angry about it, it's just understanding they might not know me, they might not understand me, so they just don't understand. They don't know what I'm about. So that could be hard for people to deal with. But me, like I said, I've dealt with it a lot. So
yeah. Well, it's been kind of a hot boiler issue for a long time in this country. Really, my whole life, it's been kind of an issue, but it's exploded the last few years, and especially the last week. And I kind of feel like as a church, maybe we've been quiet for way too long over this, and maybe we haven't been the voice that needs to be out there. Because I wrote a blog about it the other day, and I mentioned in the blog that I'm not a black man. I don't understand. I try to understand, but I can't really understand it because I've never had to face it. I don't have to live that, but I have friends that do, and I think the church has just been too quiet. And it's time for the church to step up and to speak. This last week, we've had riots all over our country. I've seen them in just about every major city in the country. As you guys, all of us here, if you've seen this on the news, what kind of things are running through your minds as you see this? What kind of feelings have you all had? Craig?
It's scary, first of all, in the reaction that a lot of people have, whether different races, different parts of town, different parts of the country, and the fact that they're reacting to what all's going on in different ways. And you may instantly want to condemn and slam those that are rioting and looting, and I'm not saying that that's right at all, but look at that perspective. If you've felt that pressure for so long, knowing that it's going on, because we all know, we can't deny that it has been going on, and they've been feeling it for so long, there's times where it's going to be exploding. And granted, some I would say most of them were probably taking advantage of the situation, but there are some that just, they're lid blue. they can only take so much.
Yeah.
And also the fact that we, especially in this part of the country where we're at right here in this rural area, we need to go beyond being sympathetic and become empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And because we don't have maybe the exposure to different races as much in this area, then we don't have that ability sometimes, or that education, or the even avenues like this to go into the realm of empathy. We can just look at the news and we can hear stories and say, "Oh, I hate that for those people. I feel sorry for that part of town. I feel whatever the case may be, or that family." And that's it needs to go beyond that.
Yeah. I was watching the news the other night, and I hear all these people who get angry when you see a riot going on, and I think we would all agree that's not the best way to respond to this. Right. And there are people apparently who are coming into cities and just taking advantage of the situation, starting riots, just full on anarchy. But there are people who are a part of the protest who have been a part of the riots as well. And I saw a lady, she's actually running for Congress, and I believe she was Martin Luther King Jr.'s great-granddaughter, or there was a relation there. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly what it was. She's from Georgia. And
research.
Thanks, Craig. Speaking off the top of my head here, buddy. Yeah. But she said something really interesting. She said when she was growing up, she used to always get into trouble because she didn't know how to respond to things that were going on around her. She said she believes a lot of these, especially younger black people, that they've never been taught how to respond. They've just been kind of pushed down, and the anger is just boiling over, and they don't know how to respond to this.
I was about to say, and that's why my mom wanted us to grow up where we were, so we can handle situations like that.
Yeah. So Greg, have you been watching any of this, and what kind of thoughts have been running through your mind as you see this?
Yeah, we've watched it on the news, and there's a lot of, you see the riots, you see the terror that's being brought out of this, and it's scary. It's scary to watch. I know when this situation first happened, when it first hit the news, and they showed that picture of the cop as he was on top of George Floyd, and it said that he'd passed away, and I knew immediately this is not going to be good for this country.
Yeah,
that's the last thing that we need coming off of this COVID virus. But it's brought a lot of things to the surface that need to be taken care of.
Yeah, I think it's been a wake-up call for our country, because I was telling Micah this the other night when we were talking. This has happened a lot, but this is really the first time we've had pretty cold, hard evidence. It's black and white. If you ask me, that it was a murder. I don't see any way around that. In the other instances, there's always been fairly legitimate questions about what happened. This time there's not. And I think a lot of, especially white people, are waking up to this and realizing it's not just been talk. This is true. This is really happening, and we have got to make a change in this country, or we're going to end up imploding, basically. So that brings us to the question that I want to tackle today. How should we respond to these things first off, as a local church? Like I mentioned before, we're in a community where it's not super racially diverse. There are some other races, but it's really Latinos, Eastern Europeans. There's not a lot of black people who live in our community. There are some, but it's a very small percentage, a growing percentage, but it's still not a large percentage. But even though we're in that community that's not super racially diverse, there's still things that we should be doing. So how do you all think the local church, us as Northview Church, needs to respond to these types of instances?
Well, we need to go to the communities that's diverse and show them that we care, and show them that we're here to listen to them if they have any problems, because if you don't get to know them, or try to, show them that you want to be there for them, I mean, they're not going to want to come to you. In times like this, they need something to go to. God is a good thing to lean on. And our church going out to them and trying to be there for them, it could help.
Yeah.
It could help. And us confronting this, doing what we're doing now, is also a big thing, too.
Yeah.
It's a big thing because nobody talks about it.
Yeah, that was when I've been thinking about this a lot for the last week, and because it's really been eating at me what's been going on, and the only thing I can think of, that's a great idea to get down into these communities, but we have a voice, use it. We've been quiet, and I don't know how many people are going to listen to this podcast, but everyone in our church has a social media account. We can support what's going on. Now, we don't have to. I fully support the protests. I believe that is necessary. That is our right. We need to be out there protesting. They need to have their voices heard. The riots, we don't have to support those things. I don't think that is furthering the conversation. I think that may be setting the conversation back because, that's all I hear about now on the news. You're not really hearing about the George Floyd thing that much anymore. They'll say these riots are going on, and then they'll kind of tag on, this all happened because of what happened with George Floyd. You had some stuff you wanted to share there, Craig. What are your notes, Mr. Researcher?
You write a whole bunch of notes down, and you think, oh, this is really going to help, but then you actually hear the stories straight out, or you get involved in the conversation, and different things spur off of that. So, I'm thinking of other things now beyond that, such as the fact of listening first. Before we even talk about it, we need to listen. How can we educate ourselves, educate the church, and then talk about it. And about the protesting, it's funny how the church is quick to stand up when it's another biblical issue of sorts. Let's say abortion rights. Let's say it's prayer in school or something else.
Yeah.
And which are often called political things, but referring to a biblical stance on that, the church is quick to stand up. Why are we not standing up to this whenever we see in the Bible where it talks about that all men were created by God? All men are created equal. All men are valuable to God, and all people have their own righteous spot in paradise, or that's open to them through Jesus Christ, of course. But it's just sad that we're not standing up all the time. And this is one of those things we're definitely not standing up on.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, this is going to blow over at some point. I believe this one will last longer than some in the past have, but at some point, people are not going to be talking about the George Floyd incident anymore. And my hope is that us as a church and the larger church, the full Church of Christ, that we're not only vocal when there's an incident that's happening, that we're always vocal. And it's not that we have to stand up and preach on this every single week. And it's not that we have to blast out social media stuff about this every single day, but it does need to be a regular part of what we're talking about. I saw a thing recently where I'm a Timothy Keller fan. I don't know if you all follow Timothy Keller very much, but Timothy Keller said in a podcast I was listening to, actually, he said that there are 4 things that the church really needs to stand for. And every church seems to stand for 2, depending on which side of the political aisle that you fall on. But they're all Christian Jesus things that we need to stand for. The first thing he said we have to stand for is the sanctity of life. And we need to stand for the biblical definition of sexuality and marriage. Now, when you stand for those 2 things, you're typically categorized as being on the conservative side of politics. Then he said the other thing that we have to stand for is racial justice, social justice, and inequalities. And we have to stand for income inequalities and taking care of the less fortunate and the needy. And he said most churches that stand on those 2 things fall on the liberal side. In reality, we've got to find a way to stand on all those. As the church, we have to stand, because they're all Jesus-taught things. we have to stand for all of them. We've got to find a way to do that. We can't just be the church who's preaching against abortion and against gay marriage. We have to stand on the things that the Bible teaches. We can't pick and choose. What are some things that we would like to see as the larger church, the full church in America, not just Northview Church, but all churches combined? What is a response we would like to see from them on this?
Multicultural bingo. Everybody's invited.
Thank you for the humor. We need that in a topic such as this.
Well, hey, that's it's.
I do like bingo, though,
Yeah, I mean, we all speak bingo.
but
We can all laugh.
we're not allowed to play that,
Okay,
are we?
that's true.
Just kidding. We can play bingo, just not for money, right? But no, seriously, what is something you would like to see from especially our national church leaders, the big names in the church? We won't name any of them because we don't want to call them out on this. This is our first podcast. We don't want to get shut down yet. But
we would like to get invited on their shows.
well, yeah, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? What kind of response would we like to see them? Y'all have any ideas on that?
Children, you got to get the kids involved.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
good.
you
That's good.
think about, I know Greg sitting over here's got his kids are quite a bit older; they're college age, and then mine, one's 16, one's just turned 13, and then I have my 13-year-old asking me, why are these people rioting?
Mm-hmm.
When he's pseudo seen what's been going on over the past week, and then you try to explain to him about racial injustice, and he's, I don't understand, and you sit there and you try to explain to him, not statistically, but the concept of how we don't treat everybody the same way. But I mean, there's, like I said, there's many statistics, and you try to explain that, and he's looking at you like, I don't understand. Dr. Jim Dennison talked about in his forum where I got a lot of my research from. He was talking about how Nelson Mandela brought up that kids are not taught to hate. Hate has to be learned.
Yeah.
So it comes from somewhere, and my son's sitting there looking. Thankfully, he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
That means, fortunately, I've done a good enough job in not teaching him to hate. But however, I haven't done a good enough job in teaching him to love and understand that this situation goes on and to be aware of it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's strong. I have two kids, and neither one of them understand. They've not even seen what's going on. But my son, he's biracial. He may have to deal with some of this one day, and he likely will have to deal with some of this one day. And I hurt for his future. I don't know what it looks like for him, but we have to make a change, and we have to stand up. Any last thoughts that you guys have before we close out this podcast tonight?
Like Craig was saying, is we gotta teach our children, because they're the ones that are going to pass on what's going on now. But if they're educated, that's what's up with our children. I want to encourage them to get to know another race, learn about that race, because I had to. So it opens your eyes up to a lot of different things, but there's a lot of similarities in between the races, but they just do things differently. But just educate your children. Educate them.
Yeah, it's strong.
Yep.
Well, I think the one thing we have discovered tonight is that we don't know the answers. We have some hopefully some ideas, but we don't know the answers. But I think the one thing we have proven tonight is that open dialogue may be helpful. And when we continue to talk about things like this, and we continue to keep it on the forefront of the church and the forefront of our conversations with people even outside the church, those are the things I think are going to make a difference. We have a voice. We can't be quiet with our voice. We have to bathe this in prayer. We are Bible-believing, prayer-believing people. And I believe in the power of prayer. I believe that God will change this world through the power of prayer. But I also believe that God asks us to take action. Just praying in the quiet of our home isn't enough. We have to stand up for the rights of people. We have to stand up for the fact that God created all people in his image, and we have to stand up for all of them, show them how much that we love them and that we are in solidarity with them and their rights in this country. Does anybody have anything to add before we close?
Bingo.
Bingo. Let's have some bingo. Well, thank you for joining us on this first episode of Maybe You're Interested, but Probably Not. This podcast is going to air weekly. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Make sure you follow this podcast, subscribe to it so that you can catch up and keep up with all the things that we're putting out there. Next week, we'll be back with another panel to have a roundtable and another topic to discuss. Tune in. Let us know in the comments how you feel about this podcast, and if it's bad, well, we'll delete it. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you next week.